When setting the scene for how this would impact, it is important to know at what stage of life we're at. So when you're considered to be an adolescent, this is between the ages of 12 to 18 years old. You typically live with your parents or some form of guardian, and you still haven't had probably a full-time job. The prefrontal cortex is still not developed. So at this stage of life, we're kind of just aimlessly letting ourselves be pulled in directions. We still haven't developed independency or self-identity. Versus in early adulthood, it is where many people will get their first full-time job. People will begin adjusting into the roles of responsibility. This is often found in 19-year-olds to 30-year-olds, is classified in early adulthood. This is also when people will be making the most life-altering decisions, such as marriage, joining the military, going to college, and what careers they choose to pursue, as well as family life. While middle adulthood can be considered anywhere from the ages of 40s to 60s. At this point, many people have had 2 to 3 jobs. They probably have an established family life. They may have a specific location where they have resided. They may be homeowners. Their frontal cortex is completely developed. Versus in early adulthood, our prefrontal cortex doesn't develop till we're 25. And why do I keep mentioning the prefrontal cortex? I keep mentioning it because this is basically the area in our brain which allows us to have rational thought. This is where we're at our, I guess, peak clarity in our stages of life thus far. And also something else to note, when we're coming to ages of middle adulthood, we will start to see that we kind of have more of a realistic view as to what we want our life to look like. This is a video of some early adulthoods looking at a computer as they're probably venturing on to going to college. Now, although they're in different stages of life, college preparation is still on the minds of many people just going about their day-to-day. For an adolescent, what this may look like is they may get prepared for college by schools such as guidance counselors, school counselors. They may go take some trips to colleges to view campuses. They may be excited for what the future holds. They may be talking with their friends about what kinds of careers they're looking at to. But this is all very loose. This is not in a definitive state. They're kind of, I guess, what I would consider daydreaming at this point, because they still don't have to make decisions, but they're getting to that point where it's so close. Versus in early adulthood, this is the point where you're 19s and 30s. You're kind of figuring out, okay, do I want to go to college? If so, for what? Or you choose to join the workforce. For people who are entering college in early adulthood, they typically find some confusion because they are trying to figure out their identity at this point in time. They're trying to figure out where they are and how to fill these new shoes that they have. Many times people are moving out of their homes. They are probably seeing and feeling the first bits of independence that they have experienced in their entire life. They may feel anxiety and pressure from society to conform and to excel at college. This is where it starts to feel real. Versus some reasons why people would go to college in middle adulthood, they may be looking for career advancement. Perhaps someone chose not to go to college before and chose to work in a company, but now they are in a position where, unfortunately, they're stagnant. And because of their lack of degree, it requires them to either stay in this position or to go back to school so this way they can further their career. They also may be looking for a change in direction as to where they want their career to go. A lot of people, when they're looking for a new challenge, they tend to look to school because it is a comfort zone. Because when you go to school, you can learn and you can try new things. So if in middle adulthood, if people are seeing that their life is not on the track that they want to be, college is typically a pretty good safe spot to go to because you can work on enriching yourself in a safe and stable environment. But however, when you're in middle adulthood, you will have a lot more pressure on yourself to already be having your life together, to already have your career established. So there is still that kind of anxiety, as well as oftentimes you may not be the center of your family life balance because you may have kids, you may have a spouse. These are all things that come into play as to why someone would go to college at each stage of adulthood. Some of the obstacles that all three of our different stages of life may face are financial decisions. Although FAFSA has been helping people out in all stages of life, as anyone can apply for FAFSA who is looking to go to a public and or private university. When you're an adolescent, a lot of the times when you apply for FAFSA or you apply for financial aid, they're looking at the tax records of your parents and seeing which tax bracket they fall into. Because oftentimes you have not had any prior work experience, this is where they'll allocate to see how much financial aid you need. These types of decisions will impact where you can apply to school or what exactly you can do. Versus when you're a middle adulthood, you're most likely working. Now, your parents' financials may still affect you in early adulthood, but once you get past a certain age, I believe it's 21 to 23, according to the FAFSA website, where they will start going off of your taxable income, not your parents'. So when they start focusing on your financials, you may be entitled to more financial assistance than, say, if you had started off going to college straight out of adolescence. While in middle adulthood, when you're looking at financial decisions on whether or not you can go back to college, this really does mean, how is this going to impact your family? How is this going to impact if you have a mortgage? These are all things that come into play. And if you have the money, so this way you can be a full-time student, or if you can only take a few classes at a time. Schedule. When you're an adolescent, your time is basically yours. At this point, you don't really have too many responsibilities that aren't self-obliged. Even if you work, it's for your money. It's not to assist many times your parents or to assist a child. This is where you are in center focus. And early adulthood as well. This is where you are in center focus and you can kind of make your schedule and mold it to what best suits you. But as when you get to middle adulthood and you have kids and you have a spouse, there are a lot more pieces that come into play, and they may view it as more of an obstacle than our other two. Travel. Whether you choose to relocate or how you choose to relocate when you're going to school. Someone who is young and going into school for the first time may choose to stay home because of fear of going to somewhere new, or versus someone who is maybe a bit more established in themselves. They're 23, 24, their prefrontal cortex is basically almost developed. They may feel more enticed and confident to travel on their own and go to school away from their parents, away from their hometown, needing a change of scenery. All these come into play. And once again, the middle adulthood has complete freedom. If they are a single adult, they can go anywhere. They kind of know where their place is. But at the same time, if their reasonings are for career advancement, they may just look for local classes nearby. So this will impact what kind of schools you go to and what you do. Relationships. Whether or not your family is close to you, whether or not staying in touch with your friends from your hometown, or a spouse or a boyfriend or a girlfriend or a partner, all these relationships come into play, and they come into play how you will view and prioritize your college work, what kind of obstacles you may face while you're currently attending school. Now, how do these theories apply? What I think was most notable about Erikson's psychosocial theory is how in adolescence we're at a pivotal point of identity versus confusion. People who are adolescent, they're at the point where they're starting to figure out what they want to be, who they want to be. But it's just such a frustrating time because they are between the ages of 12 to 18. They're right there on the brink of adulthood, but they're still very reliant on their parents. They're still dependent on others to help them figure out what they need. So when we're looking at how this kind of mindset can go towards how you choose your colleges, you'll probably feel a lot more pressure into doing what your friends may be doing, about how they'll view this or how you'll view that, and just overall you're trying to inflate this sense of the person that you're going to try to be versus maybe being true to yourself because you don't know. Me personally, I have felt this kind of confusion when it came to college, because when I was in high school, I always would worry about, okay, what am I going to do? Which class am I going to choose? And it was very overwhelming and very discouraging. However, I had a lot of college resources available to me, and that is what genuinely made my transition into college pretty smooth as an adolescent. Versus in early adulthood, the theorist that I would like to highlight is Lev Vygotsky and his sociocultural theory. When you're in early adulthood, you have grown up around a certain type of community. How that community has shaped you and viewed how your lens or perception is of college can greatly impact your success and willingness to go to college. People who are in their 19s or 30s, they may be feeling pressure because they didn't go straight out of adolescence. They may be feeling that they are behind their peers in some way because they are comparing themselves to what is the norm in their communities. This type of theory suggests that we are shaped by our communities, and we are shaped socially by how we want others to perceive ourselves. So when we're looking at Lev Vygotsky in relation to college, and how people can impact, I think the biggest lesson you can take from this is that when you are a young adult and you're trying to figure out what's right for you, you kind of just fall a little bit more into the crowd and the pressure of like your parents, and just you're going to figure out what's best for you. But also it's comforting to know that other people your age are on a similar boat. Versus in middle adulthood, I wanted to highlight Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Primarily self-actualization. When you're in middle adulthood, you typically have your basic needs met. You have your environmental needs, you have food, you have water, you have money, sometimes you have self-esteem, already kind of pretty locked down. Once you're in that middle adulthood, a lot of people tend to find much fulfillment in their lives thus far. So once you're fulfilled in all of your lower levels of need, you can get to this need of self-actualization. The reason why I think this pertains so heavily to how it impacts college students is because those of us that are middle adults, such as 40s, 50s, and we're going back to school, they're starting to realize that their life is not heading in the direction that they had once wished. So by doing it this way, they are able to then self-actualize and figure out their true purpose, and they're able to stay true to who they are. These are my references, and thank you so much for listening. I'm sorry if this was a bit long. I didn't really know how long this needed to be, but I very much enjoyed your class, Professor Williams, and I look forward to maybe taking another of yours in the future. Thank you. Bye-bye.